Good morning, everyone, and happy Wednesday. My name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. As always, I'm here to help you break down tonight's NBA DFS main slates on both DraftKings and FanDuel. If you haven't already, please like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. We are nearing 6,000 subscribers at Occupy Fantasy. If you guys could help us get over that hump before the All Star break, that would be greatly appreciated. Really appreciate everyone who's been tuning in over the past couple months. And yeah, the more likes and subscriptions we get, the more free content we can get out to you. Also, if you're not a member of Occupy Fantasy, check the links in the description below. You get access to the models that you see here, as well as our single and multi lineup builders. We also have a private Discord server full of DFS pros to help you improve your game. There's a 30-minute window leading up to each slate's lock where you could ask your lineup and slate specific questions as well. We get a 10-game slate tonight, locking at 7 Eastern Standard. This is the last big slate before the All Star break. We do have a 3-gamer tomorrow. I know personally I'm going to be playing a little bit heavier than normal tonight. We do have a lot of good options to choose from. Most of these teams are not on back-to-backs. There are a couple, but we do have most of the injury reports. So as always, I'm going to go through as quickly as I can, game by game, team by team, let you know which plays I'll be targeting. I'm going to slowly build a lineup on both DraftKings and FanDuel. So those of you who are following along can yeah, you can kind of have a shell to your lineups. And obviously, in NBA DFS, news changes things rather quickly, which is all the more reason to sign up for Occupy, get access to the model as well as the Discord server. The model updates in real time throughout the day as we get that injury news. So, without further ado, let's get into the slate. Looking now, we get the first game on the slate here. We have the Pacers hosting the Bulls. Pacers are 2.5 point favorites at home, 231.5 point game total here. So a nice healthy game total. We can start on the Chicago side of the ball. No pun intended, Alonzo Ball is also out. Alex Caruso, questionable. We got DeRozan out. Derrick Jones Jr. out, Javonte Green out. So there are a lot of bodies missing for the Chicago team. The big one here is DeMar DeRozan. With DeRozan out, that's going to be a big boost to guys like Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic. So just taking a look here quickly, I mean, the price on LaVine with DeRozan out is kind of comical. We're getting him around 7,600. I think we have to go ahead and click him. Um, yeah, I mean, it's not rocket scientist. Whenever one of the big three is out for Chicago, the other two become much more appealing. The thing with Levine is you could play him at small forward or shooting guard on either site. Vooch takes up that center spot. And on these bigger slates, we're going to have a lot of good center options. So he's a little bit tougher to get to, that being Vucevic. Love Levine. Definitely prioritizing him on FanDuel. And I think on DK as well, even at 8,500, he is one of my preferred shooting guard small forward plays. If Caruso's out, that's going to be a boost to guys like Ayo Donsumu. Maybe Kobe White gets a little bit of extra run off the bench. White is always very scoring dependent. He has a wide range of outcomes. I consider him a boom bust, tournament only type play. But yeah, I'm going to get to a lot of Levine here. I do like Vooch as a tournament center. I think he's fine. And we have to keep an eye on that Alex Caruso news again. If Caruso's in, he's an okay play. Would prefer he starts for me. Would want to get to him there. But if he's out, Ayo Donsuman's going to look excellent. I think even as things stand with Caruso in, you can get to Ayo on both sites. There's not a ton of guard value yet. I do expect we get more throughout the day. But I'll go ahead and pencil him in now. Just as a value piece. I mean, on these bigger slates, we tend to go starts and scrubs more often just because you have more value available. And I think that's likely to be the case tonight. So keep an eye on that. A lot of teams know the All Star break's right around the corner, so they're willing to kind of rest guys. Because yeah, they have that extended break, so why push them? Why risk re-aggravating an injury or anything like that? So just to touch on a couple other kind of secondary plays, I mean, I don't mind Patrick Williams here as kind of a last man in. He's getting a ton of ownership over on FanDuel. I think as we get more value to open up throughout the day, maybe that comes down. Andre Drummond, it sounds weird, but if Alex Caruso is out, Drummond's going to see more minutes. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to see any minutes of Vooch and Drummond on the floor together, but as that rotation shortens, we can kind of count on more minutes for Drummond. And at a near min price on DK, he does have some appeal to me. On FanDuel, I probably wouldn't get there as a backup center just because you're taking up that one center spot. But a lot to like on Chicago. Mainly Zach LaVine. Nikola Vucevic looks solid as well. Again, DeMar DeRozan's out, and we got to keep an eye on that Alex Caruso news. So we can move over to the Indiana side of things now. Nothing major here. I take that back. We got Miles Turner questionable. Daniel Tice is questionable as well. Turner did miss the last game for the Pacers, and Daniel Tice got the start. But it looks like both these guys are questionable right now, so there's a chance we see Turner out and Tice out, in which case Isaiah Jackson would likely get the start. If Isaiah Jackson becomes the starting center for the Pacers tonight, he's going to be excellent on both sides. I would prioritize him. I know we get power forward eligibility for him over on FanDuel. Um, and yeah, he's just been excellent when he gets those minutes. So Isaiah Jackson, definitely a player to keep an eye on. I probably wouldn't get there unless he's in the starting lineup. If Turner's in, he's fine. Not a bad matchup against Vooch here. Obviously, Vooch is a good fantasy player, but not the best defensive center. Um, and then, yeah, if Tice is starting, I mean, he did a lot better than I expected he would last time out. So if Turner's out and Tice is in, I could see getting to some Daniel Tice as a value center. But again, big slate, a lot of good options to choose from in the front court. Other than that, I mean, Benedict Mathurin looks fine on both sides. A little bit more appealing on DK where he's sub 5K. Tyrese Halliburton solid on both sides, but there's a ton of great guard plays on the slate. Don't mind Buddy Hield as kind of a high upside, lower owned option, but that being said, I mean, he's kind of priced where he should be in that mid 6K range, so I'm really not rushing to get to him. So no priorities for me from Indiana as things stand. Just keep an eye on the news here. This is the first game on the slate. We will have that news. If you see Turner out, whoever's starting at center is going to become very appealing. Wouldn't mind Daniel Tice as a punt, but I would love for both these guys to be out so we could get to some Isaiah Jackson. And just kind of as a caveat here, if we see Jalen Smith start instead of Isaiah Jackson with those two out, he would be the better play over Jackson. It's just tough to trust a center off the bench on a massive slate like this. But all that being said, I would be kind of surprised if both Turner and Tice are out. So maybe this whole explanation here is for naught, but definitely a situation to keep an eye on. Moving into the next game on the slate now. Really solid fantasy environment. We have the Hornets hosting the Spurs. Hornets are 7-point favorites at home, 243.5 point game total here. Let's start on the Charlotte side of things. We got Theo Maledon out, still no Cody Martin, still no Kelly Oubre. James Bouknight is down in the G League. Kai Jones is also listed as doubtful. So no real surprises there. It's nice to see Gordon Hayward's price come up a bit. He's been way too cheap on both sites. I still like him a lot on FanDuel. I actually consider him a core play over there. You're getting him at 5,600. Close game, very high total, two pretty terrible defenses. So it's pretty obvious why we should like Gordon Hayward here. He is priced up on DK a little bit, but I mean, at only 8%, that's surprising to me. I really do like Gordon Hayward. Mark Williams, he's been getting the starts at center with Mason Plumlee, traded away to Los Angeles. I like Williams here. I think he's fine on both sides. I mean, you have to use that center spot up on FanDuel, but at 5,700, I do think that price is justified on DK as well. 5,300, where you have two center spots. I could probably see getting to some Mark Williams, so I'll go ahead and pencil him in. Just a really good fantasy point per minute producer, over 1 fantasy point per minute. And yeah, with Plumlee gone, he is their starting center. I know they have Nick Richards coming off the bench, but I'm really only interested in Richards in games in which Williams is in foul trouble. So really not going to get to him much. LaMelo Ball, another great guard play. You're seeing him near 30% over on FanDuel. There's a lot of good payups on the slate, but I think LaMelo is one of my favorites. I could definitely see getting to him. 10-4 over on DK does feel a little bit heavy of a price, but on a massive slate like this, we should have enough value to get to him rather easily. But Hayward is my favorite play point per dollar, followed probably by Mark Williams, then LaMelo Ball, just because Ball is expensive. Don't mind Rozier, Washington, and secondary options. Wouldn't consider either a priority. With the guard depth kind of thin tonight, maybe you could get to some Dennis Smith Jr. at 3,700 on DK, but I do think we get better value that we could trust more throughout the day. So probably won't get there. But yeah, as things stand, I mean, I love Gordon Hayward. I know I penciled in AO on both sites, but just kind of thinking this through now, unless Caruso's out, that's not really a play you're going to want in your lineup. So I don't want to speculate too much. I'm going to go ahead and pull him for now. But yeah, really, really good game here. Now we can move over to the San Antonio side of things. Love me some Charlotte. Also love me some San Antonio Spurs on this slate. Trey Jones is out. Romeo Langford's out. Isaiah Roby's out. Devin Vassell's still out. Doug McDermott is questionable, and Kem Birch is out as well. So just taking a look here at the prices on both sides. I mean, Jeremy Sochan, the minutes haven't always been there for him, but when they are, he's been outstanding. I'll take a quick look at his game log. Um, He did slide back into the starting lineup last time out. I'm pretty sure he had a solid performance. Not great. I mean, only 27 minutes, sub 20 fantasy points. But all that being said, I mean, he is one of their better fantasy point per minute producers. So I like him in tournaments. I think he's a little bit overowned, though, if we're being honest. Same with Keldon Johnson. I like him. I just wish his price would come down a bit more. He hasn't been hitting value as consistently at this price as we'd like to see. Zach Collins over on DK at just 5,100 looks excellent. But I will say this, Charles Bassey is back and healthy. He should cut into that Collins upside a little bit. They did just sign Bassey to a nice contract extension as well. So they're going to want to see what they have with him. And this is a team that's tanking, so maybe proceed with some caution on Collins as he is very popular. But as long as he's a starting center, I do think he's a fine value play. Then with Trey Jones out, we could go back to Devontae Graham. Much more appealing over on DK, but even off the bench, he's been outstanding. Very, very high usage rate whenever he's on the floor. So Devontae Graham, great value play here. Probably won't get to guys like Malachi Branham unless he slides in the starting lineup. Keita Bates, Giop, similar story. They did just cut Stanley Johnson, who I think is going to end up signing with the Lakers, but that does open up more minutes on the wing. Obviously, Josh Richardson now out of the picture as well. So whoever you see starting here for the Spurs is going to be appealing again. This game has a 242 plus point game total, so a lot of good value to consider. As things stand, I really like Devontae Graham on DK at 4K flat. Coming off the bench, it's a little bit scary just knowing Popovich's random rotations sometimes, but I think he should be safe for minutes. They just don't have many true point guards. Then Bates G up if he starts at 4,300 on DK looks good. And let's see here. Malachi Branham on both sides at a thin small forward position. If he starts, I think he's fine. Not necessarily someone you can trust consistently, but again, just such a good game environment here. I think you're going to want some value from the Spurs team. So keep an eye on those starting lineups. The good news is this is a 7 o'clock game. We will have those lineups before the slate locks. So we can move into the 7:30 window now. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers at the Philadelphia 76ers. Sixers 2.5 point favorites at home. Just a 216.5 point game total here, which isn't surprising. These are two of the better defensive teams in the league. This is going to be a competitive game. These are two of the better teams in the East, but for DFS purposes, I mean, there's just not that much I'm interested in here. The only significant injury here is Dylan Whistler for the Cavs, and he's down with the G League. So this is a healthy team. The starters, Allen, Mobley, Garland, Mitchell, maybe Okoro are okay, but there's no priorities for me on Cleveland. This is just a healthy team, priced where they should be against a tough defensive opponent. So really not all that interested in Cleveland. Then on the Philly side, I mean, it's similar. We have Joel Embiid questionable. He's been questionable every day. I mean, if Embiid's suddenly out, obviously Harden, Harris, Maxey would all become very appealing. Maxey coming off a pretty big game feels a little bit too cheap over on DK. I don't mind him. But again, another team that's healthy, priced where they should be. Unless Embiid's out, I just really don't think I'm going to get to anything from Philadelphia. Cleveland's been one of the tougher defenses in the league, and this is one of the lowest totals on the slate. So while this should be a competitive game and a fun one if you're a fan of the NBA, just not the best spot to be looking for fantasy. So we can move through that one rather quickly. Moving into the next game on the slate now. We have the Celtics hosting the Pistons. Celtics 7.5 point favorites at home. Boston is one of the only teams on a back-to-back on the slate, so we do not have their injury report. We do know though, Derek White stayed behind yesterday with the team doctors. He had some ear trouble. They think he played injured. He had an excellent game. If Derek White's in, I like him a lot, but I think he might miss tonight. And if Derek White's out, Malcolm Brogdon probably slides into the starting lineup. If they do go to Peyton Pritchard as the starter, that wouldn't be surprising, but I do think Brogdon ends up with most of the minutes and usage at point guard for this team. So keep an eye on this. If White's in, I like him. If White's out, Malcolm Brogdon becomes excellent here. And Jason Tatum was listed as questionable yesterday. He ended up sitting out. It says he's still uncertain for this evening, so we got to keep an eye on that. If Tatum's in, he's going to be excellent. Still no Jaylen Brown or Marcus Smart for the Celtics, but this is a situation we really have to keep an eye on. It's not the first game on the slate, but it is in that 7:30 window, so I do think we should have most of the news. Let's say Tatum's in right now. I wouldn't mind Hauser as a secondary option. Robert Williams seemed to be playing hurt last night. I doubt he plays on the back-to-back. Al Horford rested. If he's out and Williams is out, maybe we see Muscala start at center again. He could look really solid here. Actually, Muscala, I think, started at power forward with Blake Griffin at center. So just keep an eye on that front court. We're definitely going to get some value here from Boston. It's just a tough situation to talk on right now because we really don't know. But if I'm guessing, and this is purely guessing, I think they probably rest Tatum against these Pistons before the break. Let Derek White rest as well. So we see a lot of run from Brogdon. Grant Williams would become a very appealing value option. Sam Hauser. This is just one of those situations. Like I wish I could give better advice, but until we have that news, it's really tough to tell you what we need to click in. But for now, I will go ahead and add Brogdon, and this is under the assumption that at least one of Tatum or Derek White are out. I'm guessing both end up out, in which case Brogdon would be one of the better plays on the slate. So keep an eye on this. It's definitely a fluid situation. Nothing's in stone. If they all play, maybe you can come off Brogdon and we get better point guard value. But as things stand, I really like him here. Even coming off the bench, he's been excellent. So yeah, let's move over to the Detroit side of things now. Um, we have Marvin Bagley out, Cade Cunningham out, Nerlens Noel out. So no major news here. They did trade Sadiq Bey at the deadline as well. James Wiseman is now a Piston, and he's expected to start. So keep an eye on that. If we see Wiseman slide into the starting lineup, he could become appealing as a value play. I'd say he's pretty risky though, with this new team working into that rotation. But yeah, I mean Boston's a tough team. These guys are pretty healthy. Wouldn't mind getting to some Bojan, Ivy, even Hayes if he starts, Burks if he starts over Hayes. But no priorities here for Detroit. Boston, even with this skeleton crew, is going to be one of the tougher defensive teams on the board tonight. So I don't mind anything from Detroit here, but I don't love anything from Detroit here either. So we can move on to the next game. All right. We get the Miami Heat at the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets are 1 point favorites at home, just a 2-12-point game total here. This is a new look Nets team. Obviously, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving now out of the picture. They're no longer the offensive team they were. They don't play very fast anymore. And suddenly, they're one of the better defensive teams in the East. So, not surprised by the 2-12-point total here, especially against the Heat. But yeah, let's take a look. I mean, Cam Johnson's fine if he starts. Forward's one of the thinner positions on the slate. He hovers right around 5K. Don't mind McCall Bridges over on TK. Dinwiddie's been solid. He's sub 8K on both sides. He looks okay here. But again, it's just a pretty healthy team, all kind of priced where they should be against a tough defensive opponent. So really not prioritizing anything for Brooklyn. Moving over to the Miami side of things. I imagine we're going to see a similar situation. Oh, wait, no. Tyler Hero's out, so that's big. Kyle Lowry's out as well. Victor Oladipo's still out. Duncan Robinson questionable. Omer Yurtseven out. So with Hero out, Bam and Butler are going to see a considerable boost here. It wouldn't shock me if Butler suddenly rests before the All-Star break, so keep an eye on that. It is more likely he plays, though. At 8,800 on DK, I think he's solid. 9,400 over on FanDuel is okay as well. If I'm only picking one of Butler or Bam, I would go with Bam. He's just been the more consistent fantasy producer. We saw Max Strus have a massive game as chalk last time out. If he's in the starting lineup, I'm fine getting to him again at 5K. I know we talked about Ayon Dosunmu earlier. I think Gabe Vincent, if Alex Caruso in, is going to be your better guard value. So I like Vincent here, both Hero and Lowry out. I'm going to go ahead and pencil him in on DK, actually. I think even against the Nets team that's good defensively, he's going to see enough minutes. So yeah, I like me some Gabe Vincent. And then what else? I mean, that's really it. Again, tough matchup defensively. But with no Hero or Lowry, all the guards are going to look a little bit better. Max Strus, if he starts, very solid value option. Bam looks fine. Butler looks fine. Even Caleb Martin, if you want to get weird with it, you're playing a bunch of lineups. But nothing we're really forcing from Miami, but I do really like Vincent over on DK. Moving into the next game on the slate, let's see here. We got the Knicks at the Hawks. The Hawks are 3 point favorites at home. 233.5 point game total here. So starting on the Atlanta side of things, John Collins is questionable. DeAndre Hunter is probable. Um, so yeah, if Collins is out, that's going to provide a boost to both Capella and Hunter. If Collins is in, I think he's okay, sub 6K, but the minutes just haven't been there for him consistently. Another healthy team, priced where they should be against a pretty decent defensive opponent. So I'm not rushing to get to any Hawks. I will say Trae Young looks fine. Tons of great guards to pay up for on this slate, though. But that's also keeping his ownership very low, which makes him appealing in tournaments. Same could be said for DeJounte Murray at a bit of a discount. Obviously, not the same upside, but at a little bit cheaper of a price point, he could be a solid tournament play here. And like I said, if Collins is out, Hunter and Capella would look a little bit better than they do right now. But as things stand, I'm really not rushing to anything from Atlanta. They do have Sadiq Bey in that rotation now, who's cutting into minutes on the wing for guys like Bogdan and AJ Griffin. So nothing from Atlanta I'm really loving. We could talk about the Knicks now. I mean, this game does have a high total, so there are going to be good plays here. It's just tough to identify them out of such a large group of options. Mitchell Robinson's still out. That's really the only significant piece of injury news for the Knicks. Julius Randle looks fine on both sides. Sub 10K now. His price has come down a bit. He's definitely easier to get to. Jalen Brunson, really like the price on FanDuel at 8,400. 86 over on DK, fine as well. He tends to go overlooked. There's just so many good pay up guards on most of these bigger slates. Brunson kind of gets lost in the shuffle, but he's been excellent. I think he's coming off like a 50-point game. So I love Brunson here. I think he's really solid. We see some ownership over on FanDuel, and he also has shooting guard eligibility over there. So I'll go ahead and pencil in Brunson. I'm not sure it sticks through this whole video or by the time we get to the start of the slate, but I just like the game environment. I like the low ownership. I really like the upside. Um, but yeah, that's it. They did just add Josh Hart. Hart's playing a ton of minutes. He's fine as a small forward play. He's going to cut into the upside of guys like RJ Barrett. We're going to see less Quentin Grimes and Emmanuel quickly as well. But yeah, I like Randall. Really, really like Brunson. Other than that, nothing I'm really forcing or prioritizing from New York. Let me take a sip of my drink. Moving into the 8 o'clock window now, we have the Houston Rockets at the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder are 10-point favorites at home. Let's see here, 234-point game total here, so nice healthy total. Looking at Houston, only Kevin Porter is out tonight, so what do we like from Houston? They also did just trade away Eric Gordon at the deadline. So a few minutes opening up. Let's see here. Just taking a look at some of the prices. Jalen Green, 6,800 over on DK looks good to me. I don't mind him on FanDuel either at 7,400. No Kevin Porter Jr. obviously boosts his upside. Alperen Sengun, he's back below 8K on both sides, so I'm looking to get to him a little bit more than we have been. He went on a great run, putting up massive scores. He's kind of come back down to earth, but his price and the ownership has come down a bit as a result. So I could see getting to him. Not a center I'm prioritizing on the slate, but he's certainly viable. Jabari Smith looks okay here. Decent price. Same with Jay Sean Tate. Let me click through a few of these forwards real quick. I'm just curious if Tate's been getting many minutes. I know he's been starting. But at the same time, that doesn't always mean they're going to be closing. So we got to take a look. 4,400, very appealing price. But yeah, like I said, he's in the starting lineup, but don't be fooled. He hasn't even been hitting 25 minutes. He hasn't been hitting value, so you probably don't want to go to Jay Sean Tate too aggressively. Jabari Smith, he's been much better in terms of production. Obviously, a little bit more expensive, but I'd like to get to him. Then Kenyon Martin, he's been solid as well. So Martin and Smith are the plays here. I think a lot of people go to Tate because he's cheap, but KJ Martin and Jabari Smith are both solid kind of mid-range options at forward. Jalen Green, I already talked about. Love him here. If we ever see Terry Eason sliding into the starting lineup, he becomes strong value, but I don't think we see that situation here tonight. So for me, not calling anything a true priority, but I do think guys like Jabari Smith and Martin are interesting at thin forward positions. They're both reasonably priced, sub 6K on both sites. Jalen Green still looks good with Kevin Porter Jr. out, and Sengun's fine as a center play. Probably doesn't get his own as he should be here in a decent matchup against OKC. OKC is a very thin front court, even thinner now that they traded away Mike Muscala. So moving over to the Thunder side of the ball. Trey Mann is out. Poku's out. They did get Robinson Earl back. But yeah, I mean, pretty straightforward for me from OKC. I like SGA. He looks good on both sites. Looks solid on FanDuel at 10.5. Same price over on DK at 10.5. Great matchup against Houston. And then Josh Giddey, sub 8K on both sites. Obviously very scoring dependent, wide range of outcomes, but he does have enough of a ceiling to justify that price in tournaments. Really not interested in anything else from OKC though. They just have a deep rotation, and their coach kind of keeps the minutes pretty flat for guys other than SGA and Giddey. So I like SGA a lot here. I like Giddey a lot here. I wouldn't call it either a core play / priority, but I would like to get to some shares centers in tournaments, and then all the secondary options here, I'm really just not all that interested in. So we can move into the next game on the slate now. We have the Utah Jazz at the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are 8.5-point favorites at home. Looking at a 240-point game total here as well. Let's start with Utah. Utah made some moves at the deadline. They traded for Russ Westbrook, who I don't think ever puts on the jersey, but he's going to be out tonight. They traded away Mike Conley, which has opened up minutes for Colin Sexton. So Sexton looks good on both sides. And we've seen a lot more production out of Taylor Horton Tucker lately. At 4,300 over on DK, I think he looks fine. On FanDuel, though, pushing 5K, he's going to be tough to get to. I mean, he's been good, and I don't want to sell him short here, but against Memphis, priced up, I think we could find better value on the slate. Clarkson looks fine on both sides, sub 7K. Laurie Markkinen, 8,200 on FanDuel's too cheap. The 9,100 on DK, I mean, he's fine, but really not something I'd ever be prioritizing. But you're getting small forward and power forward eligibility over on FanDuel, so maybe you go ahead and pencil him in at 8,200. So we get definitely a more FanDuel plays than we do DK in these builds we've been making. But yeah, 10 game slate, there's a lot of good options to choose from. Just to quickly recap on Utah, I also like Kelly Olynyk. I think he's fine where you can play him at power forward. Walker Kessler over on DK sub 6K. If he can get a lot of blocks and steals, he's appealing. Obviously, that scores better on FanDuel, but where he's priced over 7K, I really just don't want to use that center spot on Walker Kessler. So I like Sexton, don't mind Horton Tucker, like Laurie Markkanen over on FanDuel, and Clarkson's fine on both sites, but really no major priorities for Utah. Moving over to Memphis now. Taking a look, still no Steven Adams. Zaire Williams is out. David Roddy is down with the G League. So they're healthy other than Adams. Dylan Brooks is fine on both sides. He's trying a lot of ownership at 4,300 over on DK. I think everyone feels the same about Dylan Brooks. No one's favorite player except his own. Gonna put up a bunch of shots, probably miss a bunch of shots, but at 4,300, he does have enough upside to probably justify that price tag. John Morant looks really good here. I like him on both sides. Xavier Tillman, assuming he starts at center at 4,200, he's a pivot off of chalkier Collins or Mark Williams if you want to get a little bit different in tournaments. So I like Tillman here as long as he's starting. Jaren Jackson Jr., he's in the running for Defensive Player of the Year right now, probably the favorite as things stand, maybe right behind Brook Lopez, but yeah, he's priced reasonably on DK. Obviously gets in foul trouble at times, but he does have a pretty high ceiling. Not going to get to Bane too much, especially on FanDuel at 8K. Very talented player, but it's tough for him to pay off that tag. So for me, I like Morant here. Probably won't get to a chalky Dylan Brooks. I like John Morant. And then Tillman, if he starts, he is a logical center pivot off of some of the chalkier options. So decent spot there with Memphis. Moving into the 9 o'clock window now, we have the Mavericks at the Nuggets. The Nuggets are 4.5-point favorites at home. To many people, this is maybe a preview of the Western Conference Final. Two really good teams. Obviously, the Mavericks made some noise at the deadline. Tim Hardaway Jr. is questionable. Reggie Bullock is questionable. Maxi Kleber is out. And Christian Wood is questionable. If we get Wood out, that's going to be a boost to Dwight Powell. I probably still won't get to Powell. We just have better center value on the slate. Luka, very expensive. Not drawing much ownership, though. He's now sharing the floor with Kyrie. Luka still has that very high ceiling, so I don't mind him at low ownership, but it's just tough to want to click that, knowing that Kyrie's going to be eating into that usage. I think we see that price continue to drop on Luka, so it's kind of a buy high right now, so I probably won't get to him much. Kyrie's fine over on FanDuel, sub 10K, not a priority though. Again, the slate is loaded with good guards to pay up for. And then, yeah, I mean, that's really it. Christian Wood just hasn't been seeing a ton of minutes. Even when he's in, probably won't get to him. But if we get guys like THJ, Bullock, and Wood all out, that would make Josh Green appealing here. But definitely better over on DK where he's sub 5K. Probably couldn't get to him on FanDuel. So really nothing we love from Dallas if we're being, I don't know, blunt, for lack of a better word. Looking at the Nuggets now, Aaron Gordon is questionable. Jamal Murray is questionable as well. If Gordon and Murray are in, I'll treat the Denver Nuggets that way first. Jokic looks great regardless. Probably the best pay up option on the slate if we're talking about points. The only issue in getting to him today is that we have a lot of solid center value. You can pay up at other positions easier than you can at center for that reason. But all that being said, I mean Jokic looks great, especially on DK where you could play two centers. I imagine I get to a lot of them here. Obviously a pretty good matchup against Dallas, given their lack of defensive prowess in that front court, especially. So I like Jokic a lot on both sides. He's excellent anywhere you can afford him. If Gordon and Murray are both out, that's going to be a big boost to guys like Bruce Brown, Michael Porter Jr., Christian Brown if he moves into the starting lineup. KCP, he's been solid as well. So keep an eye on this news. If Murray's in, I think he's fine on both sides. I wouldn't prioritize him over some of the other guards we've already talked through. If Gordon's in, I do like him a lot, though. Even at that 7K price tag, we've seen him have some massive games. So he'd be in play. But another situation we kind of have to wait and see. If Murray and Gordon both sit, Porter and Brown become priorities. And Jokic looks excellent here regardless. So definitely get some Jokic in your life tonight. Looking at the Lakers now, or let me go to the next game entirely first. So we have the Lakers hosting the Pelicans. Lakers are 4-point favorites at home, 234.5 point total in this game. Let's talk through LA first. So LeBron's listed as questionable. I saw a video of him practicing. He looks healthy. It wouldn't shock me if they just rested him going into the All-Star break, but that's definitely a situation to keep an eye on. If LeBron's in tonight, he's in play. If he's out, Anthony Davis is going to see a considerable boost on both sides. Would have to love Anthony Davis here if LeBron's out. So maybe you play LeBron or you play Davis and you make sure you have enough salary to maybe pivot to like someone like Jokic in the game before it or something like that if we don't have that news. But I'm thinking we have that news by the 9 o'clock game. So definitely keep an eye on that situation. Other than those two, though, I mean, LA is another team that just got deeper. They added Malik Beasley, D'Angelo Russell, Jared Vanderbilt, Rui Hachimura a couple weeks before the deadline. So this team's just a lot deeper than they've been all season. If LeBron's out, maybe you get to some Dennis Schroeder. Other than that, I'm really not all that interested in LA other than the big two. If LeBron's in, he's good. AD's fine in tournaments. If LeBron's out, AD is one of the better pay-ups on the slate. So over on the Pelican side of things, let's take a look here. CJ McCollum's questionable with an ankle sprain. Zion is out. Ingram, his price is finally up over 8K on both sides. I still like him a lot on both sides. And if CJ's out, Ingram becomes a major priority here. So we do have a few decent pivots here if we are waiting on that LA news. Obviously, these two games lock at the same time. They're playing each other, so these two teams. So Joe Val's fine as a center play. Very boomer bust, though. Probably won't get to him much. CJ, if he's in, he's fine. Sub 8K, still no Zion. Clear upside. And then Josh Richardson at just 3,900. I'm curious how many minutes he got in his Pelicans debut. Just going to take a quick look at that. 5,800 on FanDuel. Probably not playing him regardless. But over on DK, man, 3,900 for Josh Richardson. I think I'm going to go ahead and pencil him in. Obviously better if McCollum sits, but at 3,900, as long as he's in the rotation, he should pay off that price fairly easily. But yeah, that's really it. I like Ingram regardless on both sides. CJ's fine if he's in. If CJ's out, though, we're definitely prioritizing Ingram. And then Josh Richardson is just too cheap over on DK, not drawing as much ownership as he should. So that's enough for the game by game. We could go back to kind of the overall slate look now here. So Muscala starts on DK at 3,200. He's going to be very chalky. I can see getting to him. LaMelo Ball looks good. I talked to Jashawn Tate. He's getting a lot of ownership, but he hasn't been seeing even 25 minutes per game. So I'd get to the other forwards for the Rockets. But let's take a look here. Yeah, on FanDuel, we started with Laurie, Hayward, Brunson, Levine, Brogdon. And we're definitely going to have a value center. So I'm thinking it's either going to be Mark Williams, or if we get the Celtics ruling out a few guys, maybe we get back to someone like Muscala. But for now, I think Mark Williams is the safer play. I'll go ahead and pencil him in. That leaves you around 6K per player. I think this is a good start of a lineup. You got Laurie, Hayward, Brunson, Levine, Brogdon, and Mark Williams. Again, DeRozan's out for the Bulls tonight, so a big boost to Levine. Looking over on DK, I mean, where you have two centers, I think you pay up for Jokic, and we're still looking at around 6K per player. So we got Jokic, Williams, Richardson, Vincent, Brogdon. Nice little start to a shell over there as well. So sorting by OF index, Jokic, the top raw point play on the slate. I don't think the algorithms have caught up with Luka yet with Kyrie on the floor with him. Hopefully they continue to stagger those minutes more so we could see big games out of Luka. But as things stand, it's just really tough for me to want to click that price. If LeBron's out, Anthony Davis looks excellent. John Morant, probably the best upside guard play on the slate, but he's competing with a lot of strong options like SGA. I mentioned I really liked Jalen Brunson here at pretty low ownership. So really fun slate, 10 games to choose from. I think we're going to get more news throughout the day, so definitely keep an eye on things. As I mentioned before, we are approaching 6,000 subscribers over on Occupy Fantasy, so please subscribe to the channel. Also like the video. It helps us get more free content like this out to you. Follow me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. Check the links in the description to become a member of Occupy Fantasy today. Let's have some fun tonight, everyone, and make some money. Good luck and take care.